Okay, everyone. So today we're going to talk about raptors. Make sure we're recording real quick. Yep. Okay. There we go. Today we're going to talk about raptors. This is a relatively small group um, for a tag. I think there's 9 species or something like that. We're going to talk about the orders Cathartiformes, Accipitriformes, Strigiformes, and Falconiformes. And so first we'll do Cathartiformes. That is represented here with the family Cathartidae. These are the New World vultures. And the only species in the tag represented uh, representing this family, Cathartidae is the king vulture. Cathartidae are the same. These are the same vultures that most of us would be familiar with, like New World vultures. So that's us, New World. Um, this includes things like black vultures and turkey vultures as well. But in uh, Mexico, Central America, and South America, they have king vultures, which are really strikingly beautiful vultures. They look like this. So this is Sarcoramphus papa. It's a species of least concern, and for all the vultures, the diet is basically the same, with one exception. It's carcasses and some small amount of bone fragments as well. So the king vulture again is native to Mexico, Central America, and a great deal of North America. It is a species of lowland forests and is generally considered sedentary. That is our only um, cathartid in on the tag list on the website. Accipitriformes are represented here by Accipitridae, the hawks, eagles, and kites. Now, what you're going to find is that really they're all African vultures. This entire group that's actually on the website for the tag are African vultures. So we don't get the hawks and eagles and such. Um, but we'll talk more about that here at the end of the lecture. Um, so here's a lapid face vulture, Torgos tracheliotos, which is an endangered species. Um, and basically all these African vultures are endangered, critically endangered. They're all in conservation uh, hell. They're having a bad time. um, you're going to see. So I'm going to go over these reasons here, but you're going to see with these reasons that they show up again and again and again. All these vultures are suffering from a number of really similar problems across their range in Africa, um, and so a lot of these there's a lot of overlap here. Now you've got the big one is poisoning. These guys are directly persecuted and intentionally poisoned. Some of these large vultures, like this lapid face vulture, are sometimes mistaken for livestock predators, and as a result, farmers will intentionally put out baited poison or poisoned bait. I don't know, however you want to say that. They'll take a carcass, they'll poison it, and then when they come down and consume it, they'll be poisoned. Alternatively, they might be indirectly poisoned in many cases because these same uh, farmers will poison other carnivores that might attack livestock, things like jackals. And then when those jackals go off and die, the from the poison, that poison's still in their tissues, and when they're consumed by these vultures, the vultures die. Poisoning is, uh, I think, is a conservation concern for like every African um, vulture. Some other issues with these guys, power line electrocutions. There are several vultures that have this. I don't think I even listed it every time, but power line electrocutions are an issue for several African vultures. Nest robbing's an issue. Disturbance at nest sites is an issue for this species. And habitat loss. Primarily, when we talk about habitat loss with these vultures, we're talking about conversion of their habitat into agricultural land or pasture. Diets, carcasses. They eat carcasses. That's what they eat. The lapid face vulture. 3 subspecies scattered throughout Africa. You can see it's basically sub-Saharan Africa and Saudi Arabia. Um, though it's not a nice contiguous sub-Saharan Africa, right? It's this very splotchy distribution, and they're found within steppe and desert habitat that have isolated trees for nest sites. In terms of movements within the range in Western Africa, they move in response to rains, but otherwise their movements aren't very well studied. The hooded vulture, Necroceretes monachus, is a critically endangered species. Um, Poisoning is an issue. Again, like I said, it's pretty well consistently an issue with these African vultures. Illegal trade is an issue. This species apparently has some folk medicinal types of uses that cause it to be uh, shot and then have parts sold in the illegal trade. And it's also in the bushmeat trade as well. They have a slightly interesting diet. This is the only time that we're going to deviate from just the carcasses. They're known to also eat some small insects like termites, and they eat fruits of the oil palm. The hooded vulture is found in a great deal of sub-Saharan Africa, excluding Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, the Republic of Congo, and really most of South Africa. They're barely in South Africa. Um, yeah, they're a species of open woodland and savanna, and are primarily sedentary. White-backed vulture, Gyps africanus, is a critically endangered species. Um, it suffers again some of the similar problems that these other species have. You've got poisoning issues. You've got um, conversion of habitat for agriculture and pasture land, hunting problems, and then another issue that hurts this species is a reduction in the number of wild ungulates, and this actually applies to several vultures in Africa. Um, Wild ungulates that once they die are an important food source for some of these birds. And if you have a reduction in the number of wild ungulates, you have a reduction in the number of wild ungulate carcasses for them to eat. So there's a food availability problem to some extent as well. The whiteback vulture is found in sub-Saharan Africa, excluding again places like Equatorial Guinea and the Republic of Congo. But it's fairly well distributed throughout sub-Saharan Africa. It's a species of open woodlands and savannas, and is sedentary and does move in Western Africa, at least in response to rainy season, to get into areas with less dense vegetation. The Cape vulture, also known as the Cape griffon, Gyps coprotheres, is a vulnerable species. A couple of reasons for that are disturbance and poisoning, just like we've talked about previously. They also have a problem with something called osteodystrophy, which particularly in the young birds when they're developing and they need to put on proper bone mass is a big problem. What happens is one of their big food resources are dead carnivores, things like hyenas, and if there are less of those animals than there used to be, they've been eliminated by people, then there's less food for them. And since the bone fragments that they get from eating those animals contribute directly to their own bone development, you have problems with osteodystrophy. One way that this issue has been addressed in some areas is by creating what you can think of as vulture restaurants, where bones are put out for them to come down and eat, so that they can get proper calcium supplementation in their diet, which has been shown to help with the issue of osteodystrophy. So the Cape vulture is found in the southern reaches of Africa and in Namibia, Zambia, Botswana, and South Africa. It's a species of open grassland and steppe, and is generally sedentary. They do have pretty extensive foraging ranges, so they move fairly far away from roosting and nesting sites to forage. Now we have Ruppel's vulture or Ruppel's griffin. Gyps ruppeli, a critically endangered African vulture. Big issues for this are, again, habitat conversion for agriculture and pasture land, poisoning directly and indirectly, and loss of an important food source, the ungulates, across the range of the species. And the diet, of course, is carcasses. There are two subspecies. The distribution is basically sub-Saharan, north of the equator, right? So the equator crosses right here, right? Basically the northern, a little below the northern edge of Uganda, so right through here. And so almost the entire range of this species is north of the equator, but below the Sahara Desert line that's created in North Africa there. So very few of these, well, I don't want to say very few of these individuals. I'm not really talking about abundance, but in terms of the range, very little of the range is below the equator. And where it is in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. These guys are sedentary with fairly significant local movements of up to 200 kilometers a day as required for foraging. All right. Next we have Strigiformes. Strigiformes are owls. Strigidae specifically is the family of owls. There's another family called Titonidae that is not represented in the tag. Those are barn owls, which have a heart-shaped facial disc. But these are strigids. The spectacled owl, Pulsatrix perspicillata, is a species of least concern, native to Central and South America primarily. Their diet includes small mammals that actually kind of get up to like a almost moderate-sized mammal. Things like opossums, skunks, and rabbits, and fairly large mammals, and then rodents and agoutis as well. And their diet's fairly diverse. They've also been noted to eat all these other things like bats and insects and reptiles and other birds even. So they have a fairly varied diet, but primarily it is small mammal centric. Across their range, there are 6 subspecies, again in Mexico, Central America, and a good deal of South America as well. There are species of mature tropical and subtropical rainforests and are generally considered sedentary. Our other owl here in the tag is the bubo, the Eurasian eagle owl. It's a species of least concern that eats basically mammals the size of large hares and birds the size of buteo hawks. So the buteo would be things like a red-tailed hawk. They also eat some amphibians, reptiles, fish, and invertebrates, and are a very large and stunning owl. I will tell you, this is one of the more striking owls. So, the Eurasian eagle owl has a broad range across Europe and Asia, and across that range, there are 16 subspecies. They avoid dense forests. In fact, they also avoid people. They don't really hang out where you have a high density of humans, and they like semi-open or open country that is rocky. So places with cliffs, ravines, and caves are their general preferred habitats. And they're generally considered a resident or kind of sedentary species with juvenile dispersal. There is some seasonal movement in very harsh winters. Northern individuals will be forced south as food availability becomes limited. Our last order here, Falconiformes, the family Falconidae. These are falcons and caracaras. And we have, I think, just one species actually listed for Falconiformes, but we have the African pygmy falcon here, or the simply just called the pygmy falcon, Polyhyrax semitorquatus. This is a species of least concern. Its diet is very heavily skewed toward lizards and also large insects. They do eat occasionally rodents or birds or various other arthropods. But um, so you can see the range here is in Africa. You've got a population that's sort of centered around like Tanzania and Uganda, that region, and then another down around like Angola, South Africa. Um, and so, that's the range. They're monotypic. There's no currently recognized subspecies, even though that's counterintuitive when you have two fairly disjunct looking populations. Um, they do show local movements during the extreme dry season and are generally associated with semi-arid or arid savanna and scrub type habitats like thorn scrub. So that's the African pygmy falcon. Um, so for your paper that you have to write for the tag this week, it's a little bit different because you're not restricted to tag species. I will put a short list of some other species you can look at because I feel like the tag, being smaller, at least as far as its representation on the tag website is concerned, um, doesn't really give a good breadth of the representing. Doesn't represent the whole group very well. So make sure when you go to cover that, that you read the description of the assignment closely, so that maybe you can pick something other than what's on the tag if you want to. You don't have to. So, all right. Anyways, that's all for this. If you have any questions, please reach out to me.